Hello and welcome to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney, and we have got miles to cover today. Got a lot of stuff to cover, so let's get into it. Well, I'm supposed to say the usual thing, which is, got to remember the usual thing. I'm your family's personal attorney. That's right. And you have found a place where we talk about estate planning, elder law, real estate, and business law, plus whatever else I want to talk about. Unless you interrupt me with good questions, and that's easy to do. Especially if you have questions about estate planning, elder law, real estate, or business law, any of those things, and I can give you the the what do they call it? The 411. Yeah, who understands what that means anymore? 411. My dad, I swear to God, he felt he was paying the phone bill. He would not look up anything in the white pages, or let alone the yellow pages. He would always go right to 411. Information. Anyway, long story short, that's what you're here for, right? So 616-774-2424. That's area code 616-774-2424. That's the number to call to get your question, comment, or concern on the air. See? Now, is that easy? Yeah, it's easy. Of course it's easy. What else is easy? Well, you can drop me an email, david@davidcarrierlaw.com. And david@davidcarrierlaw.com is how to email me. That's the electronic mail. You don't even need a stamp for that thing. And if you want, you can go to the website, davidcarrierlaw.com, and not davidcarrierlaw.com. That is where all the good information regarding upcoming workshops and video library. There's all kinds of stuff on that website. Oh, my goodness. It's wonderful. So, get on over there. You can, send me a nasty gram that way if you'd like, or just, whatever your question is, comment, or concern. So we make it easy as possible. Now, if you look around the world today and you think, what is going on here? What is going on? This ain't the world I grew up in. Well, of course, you are correct. You're very correct about that. And it seems like, for those of a certain vintage, now I'm in that vintage. I make the mistake every once in a while, listen to some of these preacher shows, you know what I mean? And it's like, who are these people? And how did they get to be our moral arbiters? You know what I mean? How did they get to be the ones sitting on the throne telling you, oh, it's about this, it's about that. You have to give up on this, you have to give up on that. And I talk to a lot of different people. I'm very blessed that way. Every day, I mean, it's what I do all day, right? 33 years of talking to families and trying to figure this stuff out. And like I say, I've been very, very lucky that way. And talking to what I consider regular folks, people who think that the world does not owe them a living, does not owe them respect. The world does not owe you connectedness. The world does not owe you diddly squat. All right. That wasn't God's promise to you. God's promise. You got thrown out of the garden. Remember that? Remember how that happened back in the day? You did the bad thing, or in Adam's fall, we sinned all, right? That was the idea. Okay. And now here I've given you a great place that if you work together, you'll be fine. But people don't work together, and in fact, what they've done is replace an ethic of world doesn't owe you a living to the world does owe you a living. You're supposed to do these things. And if you don't do these things, then you're a bad person. And by the way, they happen to be the things that come from being competent, being industrious. All the things your mom told you to be, right, are now, I don't know. I mean, it's like you're not supposed to be that way anymore or something like this. Anyway, talking to a buddy of mine just the other day, and he helped me here's a framework. Think about it like this. See if it helps you. See if it helps you explain to yourself, at least, what the heck is going on. Okay. And I mean, in the preacher class is the worst of all. It's almost like if you listen to some of these, I mean, it's like they're grievance mongers. It's not even, hey, the world is a wonderful place. Let's go. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. No, it's like, you're horrible. Your American dream is terrible. It's like, what? The American dream? Wait a second. What was the American dream? Working together, creating community, getting ahead, right? Spreading the wealth. I mean, voluntary coming together. That's what the American dream is. You know what I mean? Why did all these people flock here? Why do they still come here? All right. Well, let me suggest. So if you think, and this is sort of the idea, right? Try this one on for size, see if you like it. What if there were three kinds of people in the world? All right. Three kinds of people. There are victims. All right. Look around and see if you can't spot some victims, like right off the bat. People who feel that, oh, my job is a soul-sucking whatever, blah, blah, right? Victim. Or this is horrible, or that's bad, or I'm discriminating, on and on and on, okay? And it's like, oh, you can't talk about that given your age and your ethnicity and blah, blah. Oh, stuff it, will you please? I mean, just open your freaking eyes, look around, all right? Why don't you talk to some black people, okay? Why don't you, do something and realize that we're all in the boat together, okay? Because we are. And you want to divide us and you want to grievance. But anyway, back up. So there are people who are victims, right? View themselves as victims. Well, if you've got victims, then you've got to have persecutors, right? You got to have, if they're the victims, right? The blameless victim, the spotless victim, right? You got the victim, then you got to have somebody who's exploiting the victim. Because otherwise, how do you get victim if you don't have a victimizer, right? You got to have a victimizer. So now there are evil people in the world who victimize the poor victims. And if you've got victims, you got victimizers, then you need rescuers, right? Now you need people who are going to rescue the victims from the victimizers. Do you see? Does this look familiar at all to you? And of course, the rescuers are those with high moral authority because they're the good people. They're the ones who can see how it really is. They're the ones who are going to, go to the victims and rescue them from the evil people. Now, it turns out that most everybody is evil, and it doesn't have to be people either. You know what I mean? It can be societal structures. There can be all kinds of ways for people to view themselves as victims. You can have college students. Get this. You got college students. Now, think about what it means to go to college, right? Let alone law school. This happened just last week. But you can multiply the examples. I mean, just read anything about what's going on at school, right? At any college, at any university, at practically any law school, right? And you see these people, you talk about highly privileged people, all right? If you're in law school, right, you're going to be a lawyer or medical school or engineering school or whatever, education school, a whole nother thing on that. But anyway, the point is, this just happened like a couple weeks ago, I guess, just recently. And no, I wasn't there. I read about it. Okay. So I don't know what really happened. But there's videotape and there's printed stuff. Anyway, so the judge goes to talk. There's this judge. He goes to talk. And the victims, and this is at Stanford University. You know what you got to get to? I didn't get into Stanford. I didn't even apply. I was like, that'd be a waste of time. Okay. I did get into Notre Dame and Boston University and Georgetown, but I didn't get into Stanford, right? So these are smart kids who've been through college, people who did well, who got good grades anyway, by whatever criteria they use. And they shouted down this federal judge, who goes to say, hey, here's what's going on. Here's the way we see it from the bench. Like you might think that lawyers would be kind of new lawyers or newbie lawyers or about to be lawyers might be interested in what judges are thinking. You might think so. You'd be wrong. They were more interested in parading their victimhood. They couldn't listen to what the guy said. Remember, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. Well, nobody calls anybody names anymore. I don't know if you've noticed this. Nobody calls people names anymore. The stuff that we put up with as kids, forget about it. That's completely off the table, right? Now they have to go searching to figure out what it was you said that might mean in some attenuated version that you were doing something wrong or saying something wrong. Well, when we get back, we'll talk more about it. But, you can interrupt this anytime you like. And all you have to do is give us a call, 616-774-2424. That's 616-774-2424. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Welcome back to the David Carrier Show. I'm still David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. And if you'd like to get your question, comment, or concern on the air, especially if it's about estate planning, elder law, real estate, or business law, that's kind of easy to do. 616-774-2424. 616-774-2424. Now, we're talking today, and it relates back. Of course, everything relates back to estate planning, elder law, real estate, and business law. Are you surprised by that? Everything. Yeah, it's all this unified field theory about the, string theory. It's all strung together. I don't know. I'm told that whole string theory was just a complete detour. Seriously, I have a nephew who's a certified super genius, and he said there was an entire generation of mathematicians went through Harvard. And see, when you go through Harvard, and this is what he did, if you go through Harvard as a mathematician, you got to make it while you're there working on your PhD, right? Because if you don't, the world has passed you by, and the next crop of young geniuses is coming up. So there was a whole generation of lost in the string theory idea, which just shows you, see, it all comes back again, right? So here are the smartest people in the world. And these guys are smart. Oh my God, are they smart? You can't believe how smart these folks are. And they went down this rabbit hole of string theory, which you can't even explain it. Okay, that's how hard. You can name it, but you can't explain it, which I guess was part of the problem. But anyway, you got all these people diving in to explain how string theory, explained the world. And this is like, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, whatever it was. Google it if you want the facts. But it was a complete rabbit hole. It was complete. Somebody had this idea. They put it out there. It got popular. A bunch of people devoted there. It's like crypto or deconstructionism or a lot of these other things, fads, fads. There are a lot of other fads that you can think of if you think of them, that are popular these days, like the idea of like defund the police, right? Defund the police. So 4 years ago, whenever it was, they have this champion. This is out in San Francisco. Champion, the lady councilman person or whatever it is they call them out there, board of supervisors, whatever it is, politician type. Oh, we got to get rid of the police. And then last week, I'm watching this video, and it's the same person who's like, where are the police? Murder rates are up. Yeah, no kidding. Cause effect. But people go down these rabbit holes, right? Human beings do this. Okay. And you've got to have patience. You've got to have judgment, discernment, all these things, right? That when you're looking at it. And I'm going to offer you, and this is not unique to me, and my buddy didn't come up with it. He read about it. He's telling me, and I got to get the book. I ordered the book. But it was so powerful. I mean, that's why this is my pulpit. So this is what I'm talking about. 3 kinds of people, right? The people tend to fall into when they're doing this. First is victims. Second is the victimizers. Third is the rescuers. Okay. And in this ecosystem, you got to have victims. And if you don't have victims, you got to manufacture victims. Okay. I don't have to name names. I don't have to describe the thing. All you have to do is look around the world. It's not hard to do. Look around the world and look at all the people claiming victimhood. Oh my goodness. Who isn't a victim? Well, the rescuers aren't victims. Okay. The rescuers are not victims. So when you look at these protests, right? Some of these protests, like at the schools and stuff, look and see how many, and this is the worst part of it, it seems to me, because it infects the who are the rescuers? Who are the folks being told to be rescuers? It's mostly white kids. Okay, you look at the crowds. They've got the masks on and everything else. Yeah. Well, take the masks off or just look at them. It's white kids who've been made to feel guilty about, I don't know, studying. See, if you get to, you don't get to Stanford without studying a lot. And nowadays, the kids are taking drugs and stuff so they can focus more and blah, blah, blah. And they sacrifice other things. So why? So they can focus and get the grades so that they can get into a Stanford, right? I suppose at some point, I never had this problem, but I suppose at some point they feel guilty about it because they're being made to feel guilty. Now they're the victimizers. Oh, but wait a second. If I'm not a victim, okay, if I'm the one who studied, if my parents paved the way, if I had all these advantages, right? It's pretty tough to claim being a victim. Unless they ask, what is your ethnic background on a form, and then you lie. Apparently, you Google this, don't rely on my faulty memory. But apparently, like 2/3 of white kids claim that they're not white on these things. They check the box because they want they think it's better not to be. Okay, well, we've created a system whereby you got to be a victim. If you're not a victim, then you make yourself into a victim. Or you could be the bad person, right? Except there aren't that many bad people to go around. So you got to dig deep to find the victimization and then to find the bad person. And then you get to be the rescuer. Are you with me on this? See, start looking at things this way, right? See if you can't pick out who's the victim and what are they victimized by. All kinds of things you could be the victim of. You could be the victim of an individual. You could be the victim of a group of individuals. You could be the victim of your parents telling you were a boy. You could be the victim of your parents telling you were a girl. You could be the victim of... the categories of victimhood are just limited only by the imagination. These people have a lot of imagination, okay? So there's lots of classes of victimhood. That's all good. And then who are the victimizers? Those are harder to figure out. Harder to figure out who the victimizers are, unless you say it's society in general, it's this, it's that, it's you awful people who don't subscribe to my particular theology and blah, blah, whatever. You're the victimizers. And then who do you get to be? Well, you can't be the victim because that bad stuff didn't happen to you, right? You're certainly not the victimizer. So that makes you the rescuer. Well, how do you rescue the victims if you don't have any victims? You need more victims and you need more victimizers if you're going to be the rescuer, right? If you're going to indulge in that narcissistic, self-aggrandizing, infantile, I control the whole world sort of narcissism, that flavor of narcissism, well, then you have got to have victims and you got to have victimizers so you can rescue one from the other. If you wonder what's going on, if you wonder where all the self-righteousness comes from, right, of the rescuers, consider the possibility that there's this psychographic going, that this is how people are thinking about it. All right. Now, there's a completely alternative view that you grew up on. And we're going to talk about that in the next segment. But it's helpful. It might be helpful. I don't know. You consider, right? Does it help you when you look at conflict and you look at people saying all kinds of stuff and, oh, this has got to change and everything's horrible and corrupt and blah, 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 all that, you know what I'm talking about, right? See if you can't find who's the victim, who are the victimizers, and then who are the rescuers. And if you wonder why people are so hypersensitive to everything these days, why are they so hypersensitive? They're not really hypersensitive. They got to cast themselves as the rescuer. They got to prove that they're not the victimizers because they're sure as hell not the victims. All right. If you're going to Stanford Law School, you're not a victim. Right. So you got to rescue. So there's got to be some victims, victimizers, rescuers. Think about that. You've been listening to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. And I promise I'll tie this back to estate planning and see if I don't. Welcome back to the David Carrier Show. I'm still David Carrier, for now, and we'll see. And you found the place where we talk about estate planning, elder law, real estate, and business law. So easy to get hold of us, 616-774-2424. That's area code 616-774-2424. You know, part of estate planning in over the last 33 years, since 1990, 33 years has been listening to families. What are they thinking about? What are they doing? How do they want to plan? All that kind of stuff. And when you look around the world today, you say, well, this is different. Okay, what's going on now? And maybe it snuck up on us, and maybe COVID accelerated it, which I think it totally did, accelerated the process. But how do you explain some of the weirdness that's going on right now? It's got to look weird to you, right? I mean, this is not the world we grew up in. This is not the world I guess we did create it, didn't we? So it's our own fault. And don't try to dodge that responsibility. But how do you understand it? And my suggestion is that if you look at a lot of phenomenon that's going on right now, you say, well, let's describe it first. Maybe that'll help. Maybe that'll give us a way to at least start to think about what's going on. And the suggestion, which is not unique with me, I didn't come up with this. A buddy of mine told me about it, and he read it in a book. So there you go. You know, it's it's appropriation or idea. Don't you love that one? You know, it's appropriation, cultural appropriation. It's like, this is what human beings do, is they talk to each other and they see a good idea and they say, oh, I'm going to try that idea. Right? You know, have you ever had Szechuan food? You know, like Chinese food? Oh, it's a spicy, the hot and spicy, the peppers and all the rest of this, right? Where do you think the Chinese got the peppers? Have you ever thought about that? Where did these Chinese people get the peppers? Because guess what? Peppers are not indigenous to China. They came from South America, okay? So it wasn't, get this, it wasn't until Columbus showed up, right, and started trading, and that's where potatoes came from, right? Potatoes aren't Irish. They're Peruvian. And people want to complain about that. It's just, doesn't it drive you nuts? But, or I should say, not but this follows from that, right? That the history of humanity has been adopting, changing, working together, cooperation, right? It's not power, it's not conquest, it's not all the rest of those things, right? That is not, generally speaking, how we got here. How we got here is through cooperation, mutual support, et cetera, et cetera. Now, you want to deny all that. Why do people want to deny that? Why do they try to convince you that it's something else? And my suggestion is, and which is not unique, I keep trying to say that, I'm not saying, but I find it instructive, is if you look at three kinds of people, you got victims, you got victimizers, you got rescuers. All right. There's a class of people who found that there's a lot of money to be made in being the rescuer. Okay. So if you look at the world and you say, all right, victims, victimizers, rescuers. Nowadays, there aren't so many victims. Everyone's got food, an indoor toilet, satellite dish, and all the rest. So you have to scrape pretty hard to find victims. Then you have to work even harder to find victimizers, because nobody wants to do that anyway. Not like human beings are mean and bad. Yeah, we're all selfish, greedy, and seven deadly sins and all that. I get that. Adam's fall, we sinned all, the original sin, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, got it. Right? Understood. So there's evil in the world, and there's evil people who do evil things, right? Inspired by the evil one himself. Got it. But look and see just how far people have to go to create, because there's a short supply of victimizers, right? So you got to make them up. There's also a short supply of victims. So you got to make them up. You got to slice that salami pretty thin to find a victim in there, right? But once you do, the payoff is great. Now you're a rescuer. Now you make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year telling other people just how bad they are, right? And quote unquote fixing it. Well, look, do you think that the rescuers have any interest in fixing things? What if they did fix things? All right. What if the things that we've put literally trillions of dollars into trying to solve societal problems, what if that stuff worked? What would happen to the rescuers then? What if you managed to eliminate victims and victimizers? What are the rescuers supposed to do? You're out of a job. So it doesn't, it's I'm just suggesting. And listen, cut me off anytime. 616-774-2424. That's area code 616-774-2424. If you have a question, comment, or concern about wills, trusts, probate, elder law, real estate, or business law. Okay, you don't want to hear about this? It's easy to shut me up. No problem. So now there's an industry out there that takes money from one group, gives it to the other group, blah, 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 and takes a healthy whack along the way. All right. The people, the rescuers, do you think the rescuers are living in the ruins that they're rescuing inspired? Right? When the neighborhood burns down, when the Walgreens is out of business, when the Piggly Wiggly has to shut down, okay, when all this stuff happens, do you think that the rescuers have any? Hell no. They're going to Whole Foods Market, feeling virtuous about everything. Okay? That's the job of the rescuer, right? They're not victims. They're not victimizers. Oh, no. But they don't have to live in the ruins. You know, there are parts of Detroit that never got built back after the 67 riots. Never got built back. Or 68, whenever it was. Are you with me on this? So that's one way to think about it, what's going on in the world. Now, let me suggest in the last couple of minutes, there's a completely different way of looking at it, which I find compelling. All right? And we got work to do. But what if instead of victims, victimizers, and rescuers, what if instead of that, there were creative people? What if everyone, and I believe this, if everyone was really creative, was down deep, was a creator? They were there, you're there, God put you here, image and likeness, right? Well, what's the first thing you know about God? Created the place. Okay. Well, if you're in the image and likeness, doesn't that give you the prerogative, the whatever, to be a creator? Why aren't you a creator? Right? You got creators, okay? Challengers. You can do better than that. You could make that happen, right? So you got creators, challengers, and coaches, right? What if instead of victims, victimizers, and rescuers, what if instead of being a victim, you were a creator? What if instead of being a victimizer, you were a challenger, right? What if you said, hey, look, you could do more than that. You could make it wonderful. And then what if you had folks who instead of leeching off the victimization, what if they were facilitating the creation? All right? Thinking your own life, how if you refuse to be a victim and you refuse to identify victimizers and you refuse to go to the rescuers, right? Well, who did you have? Well, if you view yourself as a creator, somebody who makes things happen, an active social agent, moral agent in the world, all right, you act, then you need people to hold you to account. You need people to challenge you to be your best self. And then you think, well, I would like to be my best self. I'd like to create. I'm not really sure how to go about that. Guess what? There are people who've been down this path before. Mom and dad, for number one, okay, have been down this path. Mom and dad have been down this path before. Created you, all right? Think about that as a different way of looking at the thing. We'll be right back. You are listening to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Welcome back to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Give us a call, why don't you? 616-774-2424. 616-774-2424. We'll get your question, comment, or concern on the air. Talking today a little bit about, I don't know if it's off the beaten path. I don't think it is. I think it's germane and relevant. It's like, who do you think you are, right? How do you explain what's going on today? When you look around, you think, this is not what I expected, okay? This is kind of weird. And the suggestion, which is not unique with me, I keep saying that because it's true, came out of a conversation I had, and this wasn't unique with this guy either, but the thought is that people tend to see themselves these days, and there's a whole industry devoted to this. All right. See, you always got to look at, as my wife says, who's Chinese, so you can't, I can't criticize. Anyway, she said you got to look to who puts the rice in the bowl, right? How do people fill their rice bowl? And when you figure that one out, then there's a lot of other stuff that kind of goes along with it. And she was born during the Cultural Revolution over there, and whole family history, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, she kind of seen things firsthand, and how some of this stuff works. So anyway, that's part of what I rely on, and talking to other people and that kind of thing. Yeah, I culturally appropriate from whatever source I can find. But here's the idea that people adopt. Three things: victim, victimizer, rescuer. Okay. I think that if you look around, you'll see that a lot of activity, a lot of behavior, and it's skewed, right? Because the stuff that makes it to the media, whether it's online or offline or whatever, that's an extreme view. All right. That's 3%, 5%, 10%, whatever. But it flavors the whole thing, right? If your vanilla ice cream has 3% dog poop in it, what do you think you're going to taste? Okay. Well, look at social media the same way. If 3% of these people are psychopathic, right? Don't give a rip about anything other than self-aggrandizement. If they're a toxic narcissist and self-regard and all on and on and on and on. They have a radio show that they do every Sunday. Who knows? Anyway, hold up the mirror. But anyway, if you have a small percentage of people who are toxic, it infects everything, right? And you think the loudest voices, the most persistent voices, the people who have the greatest stake in seeing things go a certain way tend to get their way. So if you view the world as victims, victimizers, and rescuers, and you're the rescuer, of course you are. Of course you're the rescuer, right? Because you're good enough and you're smart enough, and gosh darn it, people need rescuing, right? If that's your mindset, then why shouldn't you be well compensated? Why shouldn't you be highly praised? Why shouldn't you get all the accolades and stuff that come from being the disinterested rescuer? All right, fine. These people are leeches, parasites, everything else. So there's a different way of looking at it. And that's what I'm suggesting. There's creators, challengers, and coaches. All right. Well, aren't we all part of that, right? Aren't we all creators? Why isn't everybody, every human being, right, made in the image and likeness, why aren't you a creator? I suspect that you are. And I think you got a lot of people who are trying to tell you, oh, no, you're not a creator. Yeah, that's positive. You're a victimizer because you have a house and paid it off, because you put money into savings, because you busted your hump, because you're willing to help out other people, right? That these things all make you an exploiter, make you a horrible person. You're one of the victimizers, right? You're certainly not a victim. You got a house and a cottage. Or and the cottage could be a single wide, that you put a tin roof on, but it doesn't matter. That's you. You're awful, horrible victimizer, you, right? Because why? Well, even if you didn't victimize, even if you're the wrong skin color to be a victimizer, well, that makes you and they do this. I mean, it's right out there. They actually say things like this. You may be black, but you're the tool of white supremacy. Have you seen that? They got this woman who was, I think she's a veteran and everything else. Absolute inspiring tale of a creator, somebody who made something of herself, of everything else. Now she's like the lieutenant governor or something, I think in Virginia, I think is fact check me on that one. But just an absolutely awe-inspiring story. And they're making out like she's the victimizer. Oh, you're the tool of oppression or something like that. It's like, are you kidding me? No, not kidding you. Because why? They're playing the role of rescuer, which is a very highly compensated role. Follow the money. Where's the money go? What, if you look at some of the universities, they've got more administrators. Get this. They've got more administrators than they've got teachers. More administrators than they got people teaching. How insane is that? Think about it in a different way. They've got more rescuers than they've got, coaches. I guess. I mean, where does the teacher even fit in there? I guess the teachers must be the victimizers. So you've got all these administrators to rescue the students from the teachers. Huh? How did that work? Right? Unless the teachers adopt the methodology, the ideology, I guess, more the ideology and methodology, I guess, goes along with it, right? And now they're rescuers as well, because that's what everybody wants to be, is the rescuer. And if you tell them the truth, oh my God, now you're a victimizer. So throw that away. I mean, recognize it, look for it, recognize it, understand it, right? See if you don't see the pattern. Once you start seeing it, it's pretty tough not to see it. It's one of those things. Where's Waldo? Oh, there he is. Now you can spot him, right? The other thing would be creator, right? Are you a creator? Are you someone who challenges other people to create? Are you someone who facilitates the creation that someone else is doing, right? You've been down the road before. How many times have you had a new person comes in the office, right? And right away, you figure out who this person is. Are they the creative type? And creative, I don't mean like artsy fartsy. I mean, are they somebody who wants to build something, somebody who wants to make something, who wants to accomplish things, right? Are they going to build solid relationships? Are they going to deliver high quality services? Are they going to make the thing so it doesn't fall apart tomorrow? Do they have a really care and concern for what they're doing here, right? That's what they mean by creative. Are you going to challenge them to be the best they can be, right? And then, or are you going to play the role of facilitator? How do we get from here to there? I understand you want to get from here to there. You want to get from being a creative person to actually seeing the consequences, the good consequences of what you create, which help everybody, right? But I've done that before. I can help out, right? Which person are you? How does that work? So that's what I'm suggesting, that we go ahead, right, and try to replace this whole victimization thing with a culture of creation, a culture of making things happen, facilitating things to happen. And then and I kind of think that that's where we were, right? Not perfect. Nobody says we're perfect. I mean, we got challenges, we got things we got to get right, things we got to do better. Yeah, always. But fundamentally, where are we? You're listening to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. And Renee, we'll get you after the news. Promise. Hello and welcome to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. You have found the place where we talk about estate planning, elder law, real estate, and business law. So give us a call, why don't you? 616-774-2424, area code 616-774-2424. We'll get your question, comment, or concern on the air. See how easy that is? I believe we still have Renee on the line. She called 616-774-2424. Is Renee still with us?
Yes.
All righty. How can we help?
Okay. Question I have is, my mother-in-law passed away 3 months ago.
Okay.
And she had 7 children,
Mm-hmm.
6 of which live here in Michigan. She had lived for many years in South Carolina with her daughter, in her daughter's home. And it had been assumed and mentioned for many years that she had a will.
Mm-hmm.
And in that will, she had a halfway decent amount of money that was to be divided amongst her children.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody ever actually saw the will or knew the exact amount of money.
Sure.
The daughter that she lived with was to be the executor of the will.
Okay.
Now that she has passed away, the daughter is like, what will?
Mm-hmm.
And so at this
And daughter's
point,
name was on all the bank accounts and everything else, right?
right. And she was power of attorney.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody, had any, contact of any information as far as the lawyer or, anything with the bank accounts or, any of that.
Right.
And so through some deduction, it was figured out who the attorney was. So one of the siblings did contact the attorney, and they said, yes, we do have a copy of her will. However, it is not signed.
Okay.
And they said, we would be happy to file I believe it was called
Intestate.
Motion, on your behalf for this for $1,500.
Mm-hmm.
But
cheap.
We're not sure
That's cheap.
if that is something that is, worth it, or if we would want to use that attorney, or, even how to proceed from this point.
How much are we talking about? How much do we think we're talking about? In terms of assets.
That's the thing. It's unclear. It's presumed that it's a fairly decent amount. Nothing crazy. Maybe several $100,000. A couple $100,000. Nobody really knows for sure. But and that's just it. Is this worth pursuing? And then there is, assumptions that perhaps this daughter was abusing her power of attorney, perhaps spending money for, a couple of years here that she shouldn't have been spending. All assumptions, of course, but, and then these other siblings here are just kind of wondering, should they pursue this? How do they pursue this? What do they do?
Right.
And
so
is it worth spending money on?
And there's no real estate, it's all financial, is that right?
Right.
Okay, so here's the problem you've got. If there's real estate involved, then we go to the Register of Deeds and we can find out what's going on with the real estate. At least that much is public. But when we've got financial assets, good luck, right? How do you get access to someone else's financial information? And the answer is you don't, unless you're on it. Now, what typically happens in a situation like you described is the caregiver child gets put on the accounts as either as pay on death beneficiary or co-owner. That's the way it goes. And everybody's saying, oh, that you should do that. Put your kids on the account, like put your kids on the house. Insanity, in my opinion, but there you go. And the idea is, well, we'll avoid probate. And frequently the assumption is that and sometimes spoken and sometimes unspoken, the assumption is that the caregiver's child, the one who's on the accounts, will settle up with the other kids, right? Doesn't happen frequently. So we had one where dad had the will and had all these CDs, a few $100,000. It's a similar situation, a few $100,000. There were multiple kids, 6 or 7, something like that. And some of the assets went through probate because dad had his name only on the CDs. But as the CDs matured, he put his oldest daughter's name on the CDs. Okay. And when dad died, right, so we probated the ones that were still in dad's name. But the other family members said that the older sister had said, oh, yeah, when these things come due, I'll just settle up with you guys. I'll just divide them and distribute. Well, 6 months go by and nothing on these CDs with older sister's name on them. And the other kids are like, "Hey, sis, what's going on with those CDs?" And she says, "Well, I prayed about this quite a bit and reflected on this on and on. And finally, the Lord showed me that Dad wanted me to have the CDs." Kind of convenient, if you ask me.
Right.
But what are you going to do? And her name was on the CDs. She was the owner of the CDs. And unless you can show either lack of mental capacity or undue influence, then it ain't going to happen. All right. It doesn't happen. There's nothing you can do about it. Now, here's how that works. Undue influence. Was Mom competent, mentally competent throughout this?
The last probably 2 or 3 years, probably not. She had suffered a stroke.
Mm-hmm.
And, she was mentally competent for the majority of the time. But, the last couple of years, she had, probably not.
All right. So here's the problem right off the bat. You cannot prove, if that's the strongest testimony I've got, I'm not even going down the path of lack of mental capacity because you just don't know. She could have had a good day when she decided to do this, et cetera, okay? So proving lack of mental capacities, you have to prove that this person was, catatonic for the last 2 years or, completely out of it when the transfer occurred. And also that there was no authority under the power of attorney to do what happened either, which usually there isn't any authority under the power of attorney to do that. But it's one of those things you got to look at. So now what you got to look at, the next thing is you got to see is undue influence. Did sister unduly influence mom to put her name on these accounts? Well, with undue influence, it's pretty tough because you can undue influence is not crying. Please, Mom, please. Well, that's not undue influence. I'm begging you. That's not undue influence. You're going to have to go find your own place to live. That's not undue influence. Okay? Undue influence is overbearing the will of the person, gun to the head. That more undue influence. Okay? It's not weeping, crying, whatever else. Now, if you're saying that somebody unduly influenced somebody else, you've got to prove it. How the hell are you going to do that? Now, so that's the starting point. You have to prove undue influence. There's another way. What if the person who is got the benefit was fiduciary to the person with the money? So now we're talking about your sister and your mom, right? And the question is, did your sister occupy a special place of faith and confidence in your mom's view, right? Did she? Because if she did, and then mom changed things to favor that daughter, now that daughter has got to prove, your sister in North Carolina now has to prove that there was no undue influence. Well, how the hell are you going to do that? Well, the way we do it is with affidavits and multiple witnesses and all kinds of, there's a way to do it, but people don't usually do that. So the burden of proof, and this is in Michigan, I don't know what it's like in North Carolina, the burden of proof now shifts to the person defending the favored treatment. Okay? So you start off with everybody's equal. Now you're shifting to favored treatment, and it's the person who got the favored treatment. If they're fiduciary to mom, to the person with the money, and things were changed in their favor, now they've got to prove that. Well, good luck proving it, right? Good luck proving that there was no undue influence, unless you were thinking this might come up, and then you document the heck out of it, and then you can. But this is a very common situation. And generally speaking, it's not worth doing it because sister already spent the money. Sister's name was on the account, right? Courts are very reluctant to go back and re-examine these things. and it's very, very expensive to do, and it's very dicey at the end of it. See, this is one of the reasons where when you do an estate plan, dare I say, like with us, where you lay everything out, right? So there is no question about what's going on. But it's not an uncommon situation, I have to say. Okay, if you wanna hang on through the break, we can wrap it up after the news. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll be right back. You've been listening to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Welcome back to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. And now's the time to give us a call, 616-774-2424. The Meals on Wheels West Michigan, these are the folks who, throughout West Michigan, provide meals, healthy, nutritious meals to folks who are staying at home, who need the assistance. And this is the second annual today. That's why it's live and local, right? So today is the second annual March for Meals Community Walk and 5K. It is a family-friendly event. That means if you bring your family, we won't frown at you, I guess. For people of all ages and abilities to come together and support the health and independence of older folks in West Michigan. There's a timed 5K walk, run, whatever it is, timed 5K to the mix this year. And it's at the beautiful, have you ever been to Millennium Park over there in Walker? Put it in your GPS and get on over there. It's a 2-mile loop. It's the one they used for, I think it's the one they used for the Alzheimer's walk as well. But it's really very, very nice. Get out there. It's sunshiny. It's not like yesterday. See, if this were yesterday and they had the walk, you'd have a great excuse not to go. Why? Because it was slush. It was freezing. It was terrible. Terrible. Slide offs on the highway. Terrible. Well, not like that today. Look outside. It's beautiful. So anyway, get on over there. Why don't you? Dogs are welcome. So bring your furry friends. I guess cats are welcome too, but you have to ask the cat, and it's not really up to you. Packet pickup and festivities begin at 9 a.m. at the Grant Pavilion. This is the real. Just got on over there. You'll see the volunteers. They'll show you. There's going to be a brief welcome at 10, and the walk and the race take off at 10:15. So get on over there to the Meals on Wheels event, and you got no excuse. I mean, it's just beautiful outside, isn't it? So get on over there. Just wanted to. We are sponsoring it. We sponsor this one, the Alzheimer's Walk. There's a bunch of other stuff that we're doing. We're doing as well. But that's why we're mentioning that. So love to see you over there. If you already signed up, that's great. Get off your keister and get over there. You got no, can't say, oh, yesterday was terrible, and so now I'm not going today. What? Beautiful today. Love to see you there. Okie doke. So, and we got that. And then, Renee, are you still with us?
Yeah, and I just have a couple of questions.
Yeah, please.
I'd like to ask.
Fire away.
Okay, two things. One, with this unsigned will at this attorney, is there anything that we can do with that?
No, not really. I mean, here's the thing. If mom put sister on the accounts, right, then those accounts are not going through probate anyway. You see? And the will only deals with stuff that was in mom's name only. So this is the problem with these beneficiary designations, co-ownership, co-tenancy, joint tenants with rights to survive, all these things that people do to avoid probate, right? Well, they do avoid probate. It doesn't make sure that your kids will get a nickel out of it, or that the one kid won't help themselves. But you see, here's the problem with these things is nobody knows what mom wanted. You've got the will. Okay. Well, everybody knows that the will only works on things that you haven't already given away. So it's very common for people to put some of the stuff going to a kid, because they don't want the other kids jealous or what have you. So they put the kid on the checking account, savings account, or maybe it's just convenience. But nobody knows because, there's no room on the form to say, oh, and by the way, I really want you to get this. You just don't know. So no, the will is not going to. If sister's name was on these accounts, the will is not going to help you.
Okay,
Especially an unsigned one.
And then also, I do believe that she had some General Motors stock. Is there anything that could be done with that?
Well, now it depends. Was sister on the was there a brokerage account that held the stock? Was it is it just paper stock in mom's name? See, if it's just paper stock in mom's name, now it's going to have to get probated. Okay. So if sister's name was not so there's two ways to do this, right? One is I got the stock certificates. I got the pieces of paper that say I own 1/1,000,000th or whatever of General Motors. And it has mom's name on it. That's a way to go. If mom dies, now you're going to probate to change that stock over, change the ownership on the stock. But if mom held the stock in a brokerage account, right? So she went to Ed Jones or E.F. Hutton or, whoever, Lehman Brothers, a few others who aren't around anymore. Ed Jones is still around, though. Don't want any confusion there. Anyway, so she has it in a stock account. Well, the stock account could have somebody's name on it, right? So even if you have shares of stock, there is a way to avoid going through probate on the paper stock by having it in an account. And now you can put a pay on death beneficiary on the account. So that could have happened. Obviously, we don't know.
Right.
Is it worth finding out?
What if mom...
Go ahead. Yeah.
What if mom had put her children as individual beneficiaries on her accounts? How do we go about getting to those accounts?
Well,
do we need an attorney to do that?
Well, look, you're going into unexplored territory, okay? And you need a competent guide to get you through. All right. This is radio show advice, right? Which is sort of general. We can't get too specific because I don't know what the specifics are.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, if there's a couple 100,000, X 100,000 at question here, then does it make sense to invest 10,000, to get a 20 times return on it or more? Who knows? Because we don't know. But that's the nature of this sort of thing.
See, the thing is, she had a signed will in her possession, but for whatever reason, the attorney didn't have a signed copy. But the problem is, the signed will is in now this daughter's possession.
Do you know that?
And yeah.
How do you know that?
It's been a known fact, and the mother had stated that.
But people change their mind and known facts. I mean, you always got see. This is why you need an attorney, to kind of dig into it a little bit and find out what exactly do we know, what don't we know. I'm not sure that the $1,500 to file something in probate court, that's the camel's nose under the tent. I mean, that's the lost leader. Once you're into that, you're off to the races. So what I think you'd be better off doing would be spending some money on an investigation by the attorney. Find out what you can find out. That would be my advice. Okay?
Okay.
Any more? If you have any more questions, hang on, and we'll knock them out. Okay? But okay. I would invest a few bucks with the guy to do some investigation.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Renee. Thanks for calling. You're listening to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Welcome back to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Now's the time to give us a call, 616-774-2424. You can always drop me an email, david@davidcarrierlaw.com, david@davidcarrierlaw.com, or just go to the website. There's all kinds of great stuff on the website that you need to know about. I don't know if you do or not, but anyway, if you take a look, make your own decision, reach your own conclusions, be a creator, right? That's the That's my mantra from now on. Don't be a victim. Renee, are you still with us? Any other questions? Are we all good?
She's not.
She's not. Okay, doke. But we just heard the weather report, and it's going to be bright and sunny and dry, not like yesterday, which was totally nasty. And yet everybody still showed up, or pretty much everybody still showed up at the workshop we did at the home office in Grand Rapids, Michigan. These are the workshops. We do them all over the place, up in Big Rapids. That's a new one. We'll be spreading out to Ann Arbor, East Lansing, Flint. I mean, just all over the place. But we're still doing them. Not giving up on you in Grand Rapids, Portage, Muskegon, Holland. These are the ones we do. We're doing all the time. One of the things that has been difficult has been our, what do you want to say? See, there's a way to do estate planning, right? There's a way to do it so that we don't run into, problems like Renee had, with her mom, because I got to tell you, frequently there's rumors of money and nobody really knows how much there is and all the rest. And then mom goes to live with one of the kids and what have you. And for the last years, whatever, what if mom needed long-term care? And now you might say, well, she's living with sister. Yeah, she's living with sister, but sister needs some help. Sister needs to get out once in a while. And it's hard to imagine just how expensive this long-term care stuff is. It's $15,000, 12 to 15. Anyway, this is before you get the special mattress and the special this, that, and the whatnot, the pharmacy stuff. Before you even get there, it's 15 G's, $12 to $15,000 a month for skilled nursing. I mean, I'm talking traditional nursing home. Now you can pay less, $7,000 to $9,000 for assisted living, or you can pay to have someone come in the house, and the price for that has gone up. And you say, well, and this is what you hear, oh, gee, these people who run the care facilities and all the rest, it's just outrageous. It's horrible. Well, it is horrible. It is outrageous, but it's not their fault either. The problem is that we've got a lot of older people. I don't know if you noticed this, but America's getting gray. That's just the reality of the thing. And it's the baby boomers. We had a good run. Okay. But here we are at this point in life, and more people are needing more and more care. Okay. But Renee, 7 kids in her family, right? Mom's living with one of the 7 kids. Okay. Do you have 7 kids? Right? Are you going to be able to live with one of your kids for X number of years? But for some people, they seem to think that's the plan. Well, I got to tell you, expectations have changed. I mean, certainly, in Renee's family, at least we had one sister who had that expectation that mom would come live with them, or maybe they would shoot mom around, or maybe they do like my family did, which was the kids took turns. Now there were 8 of us, so it wasn't that bad, but and I have I candidly admit I didn't pull my weight on that. But in terms of actually being there, I'm one of the parachute kids, you know what I mean? Out of town, who dropped in every once in a while, but I did my 2 weeks or month or whatever. Anyway, long story short, that is not a viable model for most families anymore, if it ever was, for smaller families. Okay. And so the demand for care services is going up, where the supply of caregiver services is going down, down, down. Well, what happens when supply goes down and demand goes up? What happens when you cut off America's oil? When you decide not to drill anymore, when you decide to close down pipelines and everything else, when you restrict supply, what happens to price? It goes up. Everybody knows this, right? And that's what's going on with the whole long-term care thing. All right. This is why it's so expensive. Plus, you throw in whatever the heck went on in the national psyche. Listen to the first hour. It's available there. right? Listen to the first hour if you want to know what I think happened, at least in part. But we're in a situation right now where jobs are going begging. I mean, how long has it been? How many years has it been now that we've had more jobs than there are people, right? Well, that's where we're at. You want zero unemployment? We got zero unemployment. And you still can't entice people to, to come out for the, for the interview, for the job, or to stick with it once they've been hired. I mean, talk to anybody who's trying to hire people. It's not easy. All right. So that's the reality. That's what that is, what we're dealing with. So now the question becomes, well, how do we make this all work? Right? How do we handle it? And the answer to my way of thinking, which doesn't change very much, been this way for 30 years, is you've got to take advantage of every resource that's out there that's available to you. Don't be a victim. Get creative. Right? Think, well, how do I do this? If you do things like everybody else, you get the results everybody else gets. And unfortunately, that means going broke. Well, if you want to be broke, I guess more power to you. That's what you want. That's what you saved for. That's what you worked for, is to leave nothing to your kids. Oh, and by the way, impoverish your spouse along the way, or yourself. Right? Maybe that's what you want to do, but there's a different way. And that's what, that's what these life plan workshops are all about, showing you the different way. But the frustration has been that it is expensive. There's no question about it. Relatively expensive. If you're actually going to do the job, if you're going to do the job the way the job needs to be done, it's expensive. So the challenge we've had is, well, how do we cut the expense? What if we could cut the expense in half? What if we could cut it for some folks by 2/3, depending on what you need? Right? What if we could do that? And that's the grand experiment we're in right now. What if we cut our fees across the board, when it comes to the planning part? All right. I haven't figured out how to make this work for, probate and trust administration. I don't see how it could work, but who knows? Maybe we'll figure it out. But for the planning part of it, if you don't mind coming to the workshop, if you don't mind, being there with other people, right, as we do various things, then we can cut the fee. And that is what we've done. You've been listening to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Welcome back to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Now's the time. Well, you don't have much time, but you know what you can do? You know what you can do is you can get over to Millennium Park. Millennium Park being the, Millennium Park is over in Walker there. And it's Meals on Wheels, West Michigan's second annual March for Meals. It's a community walk and a 5K. All right. So what's 5K? 3.1 miles. Jog it out. Come on now. And so anyway, that's there. In case you want it, it's timed. So I guess you get whatever it is you get from a timed run, but also, it's fun and fellowship, and it's a beautiful day outside. Now, if it was yesterday, I would say, let's catch that one on video later on, get the highlights. But it's getting warm outside. It's getting real nice, 31 degrees already, and it's sunny. What does that mean? That means that by kickoff time, 10:15, when the walk begins, the March for Meals begins, then, it's going to be in the 40s. You better bring your sunscreen, leave the jacket at home. It's going to be Miami Beach out there, Jackie Gleason and all that. So, well, maybe you should bring the jacket. But they are saying it's supposed to warm up. It's supposed to get really, really nice. Bring your dog if you've got one. Leave the cats at home, the hamsters, the gerbils, leave them at home. But bring your doggy if you want. That would be fine. Parrots and crows, those are also available, and also very welcome there. But the festivities begin at 9:00 at the Grant Pavilion, which you can't miss. And then there'll be a little welcome address at 10, and then the walk and the race will kick off at 10:15. So look for our table there. We got all kinds of great stuff. for you at the table, and a lot of other exhibitors, and of course Meals on Wheels, which is the big deal. People want to stay at home, and lots of times the stumbling block there is the food. How do you make sure that they get healthy meals and all the rest of this? And Meals on Wheels just does an incredible job that way, because what they do is they make it possible for lots of folks to stay at home. Because if you didn't have that lifeline of groceries where people come out and the drivers come out and they deliver the food, if you didn't have that, there's an awful lot of folks who would wind up in a assisted living situation or senior housing. They have to give up their home, go to a senior housing alternative or a long-term care alternative. And so it's a very cost-effective way to do what people actually want to have done. But I would like to, I'm just going to touch back on sort of new developments, things that we're trying now. We're always trying new things. But for the longest time, it was, and I do mean, we've always tried, like, how do we get the greatest advantage for the client, right? How do we serve the middle class in ways that they don't go broke, that things work out? And that's not easy, okay? And we have been laser focused on that technical aspect. But then at the same time, we're trying to do that in a way that's as economical as possible. And that's difficult. It's difficult because the model was, the way we were doing things was all one-on-one. Well, it's hard to hire people these days. And for people with the skill set necessary to get the job done, it's expensive. It is. Now, I think the cost benefit works out very, very well. At the same time, it's difficult for people to get over the hump financially. So, to move on. So then the question is there some way we can significantly reduce, and I'm not talking 10% or whatever, I meant significantly reduce the cost. And we're in the middle of an experiment right now. And it's been going on for a few months, it'll go on for several months more, and either we'll commit to it or we'll go back to the old way. But so far, the results have been very positive. And the idea here is, if I didn't have to provide one-on-one care for everybody, now there's some people for whom it's appropriate, right? But if you could choose, you get to decide, well, do I want the one-on-one? Do I want more of a group setting? And that's how we've managed to cut the cost by 2/3, by half, depending on what you get. And the way we do that is you got the workshop, which has always been multiple people, multiple families at one time. But what we figured was, well, what is it exactly that we have to do, that we must do every single time one-on-one? Okay. Are there things that we're doing here that could be done in a group setting, so that if we do them in a group setting, now the cost can come down significantly? And that's what we're doing. So instead of one-on-one for funding, instead of one-on-one for plan design, instead of one-on-one, there's an element of one-on-one. Instead of that, what if we did it as a group? Okay. Now, we don't sacrifice any confidentiality, obviously. We've got to maintain confidentiality. We've got to maintain the robust plan design. But the idea is, if we did all of those things, right, and we could significantly cut the cost, right, now we're really serving a lot more of the families, many more families for whom price was the problem. Well, what if it's not the problem anymore? What if we're charging pretty similar to what everyone else is charging, except that instead of avoid probate, save taxes, get it to the kids, what if what we're accomplishing is avoid nursing home poverty, then avoid probate, save taxes, get it to the kids? What if we could do both? That's our challenge. That's what this experiment is all about. And the results have been overwhelming so far, overwhelmingly positive so far. People like doing it. We do build in one-on-one time so that your plan is your plan. It's not somebody else's. It's not a cookie cutter. Oh, everybody gets the same. It's not a download, some silly forms and put the names in the wrong places. It's not like that at all. It's the same effort. You think about it like this. If you want to go to Florida, right? Let's say you want to go to Florida. I don't know why the weather's turning, but let's say you just do. You want to go to Florida. Well, yeah, you can drive, you can walk, you can ride a horse. I suppose you could, but most people fly. That's how you do it. Okay. Then the question becomes, how are you going to fly? Where are you going to fly? Are you going to go on the $59 round trip, the, Allegiant, Spirit, JetBlue, whatever it is, Frontier, right? Or are you going to go on Delta or one of the name brand airlines? Well, let's face it, the name brand airlines are more comfortable. The seats actually go back. Wow, 3 inches. But at least they made the effort, right? They go back. And some of these other ones, the seats don't go back. You're packed in, etc. Yeah, that's true. But it's a fraction of what it costs to go with the other guy. And here's the point. You get to Florida. Right? The safety record is the same. You get everything that you wanted. You just got to put up with something in the middle that you didn't want, but it was worth it because it's that much less expensive. That's what we're driving at. We're not sacrificing any safety. We're not sacrificing the goals. What we are doing, though, is in a group setting, so it's not as one-on-one. Yeah, give it a try. You've been listening to The David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney.